This is the W5FC repeater, PL110.9. TechNet Saturday at 7 p.m. W5FC.
Chairman, I need to make myself very clear. If we uplink now, Skynet will be in control of your military.
But you'll be in control of Skynet, right?
That is correct, sir.
Skynet.
Well, it's that time again. It's time for Skynet. Does anyone need to use the repeater before we begin tonight? 9 p.m. Skynet. This is Kilo Echo 5 India Charlie X-Ray, KE5ICX. My name's Tom, and I'll be your net control for this session of the DARC Skynet. Skynet is a weekly net called every Saturday night at 9 p.m. concerning the subject of astronomy. Our purposes are to help amateurs become more familiar with the nighttime and daytime sky and astronomy and space in general. This net is open to all amateurs interested in this topic, and we encourage your participation, comments, and suggestions for this net. Stations with priority or emergency traffic may enter the net at any time by using the pro sign break very enthusiastically and your call sign. Is there any emergency or priority traffic at this time? This is a directed net. Please do not transmit without direction from net control. That would be me this evening. And stations are reminded to ID at the end of your transmission. This weekly net operates on this frequency, 146.88 megahertz, with a PL tone of 110.9. Check-ins via Echolink are also possible using the W5FC-R station ID or Echolink node 37247. Tonight's topics, astronomy charts, pictures, and live audio-video links are available online. Just go to the club website, w5fc.org, right now for a complete list, and remember to tell others about this popular net. You can now also check in to the net electronically by going to the club website. Look for tonight's announcement for Skynet, and right below the picture you'll find an electronic check-in form. Click on it and you can electronically check in. But don't worry, if that's not your thing, you can still check in via voice. So, with that, we can get started here. Let's see here. I gotta do more than one thing these days, so hold on. Here we go. The net is divided is 90 minutes long and is structured in several parts. We have general announcements, Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas events, where and when you can look through a telescope, National Space Society events. The discussion topic of the evening was space exploration and space history, Constellation of the week, space launches of the week, visible satellite passages over the next couple of days, astronomical Q&A in the 73 round. Depending on how long the net goes, 90 minutes, will determine just how many of these topics we actually get to. We'll go ahead and take check-ins now. The check-ins will begin with short time. If you're short time, meaning that you have to leave soon, and you may have an announcement, now's your opportunity to check in. Please come with your call sign, name, and where you're transmitting from. Short time only, please. Okay, hearing none, that's perfectly fine. We have currently the following people checked in via the electronic form. We've got myself, KE5ICX in Corpus, KF5JHA, Chaz and Bob the Cat in Mesquite, Dallas County, Texas, the US of A, N5LIG, Dale in Little Elm, Tony in Bird City, I think that's over near White Rock Lake if I remember correctly, N5BV, Mr. Bill in Irving, AG9SG, Antonio in Dallas, and KN5EEE, that's Al over in Allen. I'll take check-ins over air now. If you'd like to join us this evening, please come with your call sign, your name, and where you're transmitting from.
Kilo 5. Juliet Delta Whiskey, John and Coppell.
Ooh, we're off to a slow start, but I did get K5JDW, John, over in Coppell. I see people lining up over on Echolink. I'll get to you in just a minute, but over here, please come now with your call sign, your name, and where you're transmitting from.
November Victor 5 Foxtrot, Virginia in Fort Worth.
Kilo Foxtrot 5 Zulu Bravo Lima, Bill, Farmers Branch.
Okay, it's going to be one of those evenings, but I did pick up two more. I got NB5F, that's Virginia over in Fort Worth, and K5ZBL, the other Mr. Bill in Farmers Branch. All right, to belabor the point, I'll go over to Echolink, and I will get other over there in just a moment. So if you're on Echolink and you'd like to join us, please come now with your call sign, phonetically your name, where you're transmitting from, Echolink only.
November 5, Oscar Foxtrot, Clay and Mesquite.
Kilo Juliet 5, November Tango Alpha, Joette, Far North Dallas.
This is Whiskey 5 Golf Uniform Sierra. It's Gus, far northeast Dallas.
Alpha India 5, Oscar Lima, Dan in Fort Worth.
We picked up M5OF Clay over in Mesquite, KJ5NTA. Make sure I got that right. I did. And that's Joet in North Dallas. I got W5GUS Gus in far northeast Dallas. AI5OL Dan in Fort Worth. Okay, I'll open it up to any mode. Please come now with your call sign, phonetically your name, where you're transmitting from. Any mode. Okay, well, maybe a slow night this evening. We'll see if we get some late stragglers. Surprised it's a few, but it could be the Olympics that are causing that. Let's see, we took care of Echolink. We did the open round. We'll go ahead and move on to general announcements. Do we have any general announcements for this evening's net? These can be of ham, astronomical, space, or of general interest to licensed ham. Please come to your call.
November Tango 5, Tango Mike.
Okay, we have one person, NT5TM. Tony, go right ahead.
Good evening, Tom. Always great to hear you. Really glad you still join us for the Nets. Tonight's Afterglow movie discussion will focus on Destination Planet Negro. Yeah, that's really what they called it. It's a science fiction comedy from 2013. It was certainly very unusual, and you can join us to talk about it on the air right here about 5 minutes after the end of this net, roughly 10:30 or 10:35. The next Dallas Amateur Radio Club Lecture and Lab is coming up in just a week, and it's an exciting battery box build. Check out W5FC.org for more details. The Irving Amateur Radio Club Hamfest will be on March 7th from 8 a.m. to 2 p.m. Get there early for the best selection of weird junk you didn't know you needed. I always buy something, and I usually don't expect it. More details are at irvingarc.org. And finally, please don't forget about GeekNet coming up this Monday at 7 p.m. on this repeater. Everything that you think is geeky or weird, whether it's news or a topic or just an exciting report of the latest butterfly you saw, is welcome. NT5TM, back to net.
Thank you, Tony. Does anyone need any fills? Please come with your call. All right, I'll give the usual net information here. We do have AmSatNet, Amateur Radio Satellite Group, that has 3 nets available to Dallas residents on Tuesday evenings at 8 p.m. You can check into the National AmSatNet via Echolink. Learn all about amateur satellites and how you can use them in amateur radio. The National AmSatNet will bring you the most up-to-date information on amateur satellites currently in use or new ones coming online. You'll need Echolink installed and you registered. You can find it under Groups and AMSAT. Also look for the live audio link available on their website. It's www.amsatnet.com. This net originates in Houston, Texas. There's also 2 local nets available where you can ask questions. Both of these encourage check-ins, active check-ins. You can ask questions of the net control as well as others who are also checked in. AmSatNet East is every Tuesday night at 8 p.m. on this repeater. Tom N5HYT is the net control. All are welcome to check in. The first Tuesday of the month is the ARC Club night, so there is no AmSatNet East. However, there is a Dallas AmSatNet West. This is always every Wednesday night at 9 p.m. on the Arlington repeater. That's 147.140 megahertz, PL 110.9. with a positive offset, and that is also Tom that does those nets. And as Tony mentioned, we do have the Monday night nets. The Monday night nets are alternating nets. As he mentioned, GeekNet is the 4th week. First week is Ham Fixins, where we talk about food and recipes. Second is MCOM 101, emergency communications. You don't have to be a member of any group to be a part of that. Third week is Ham Fixin's Second Helping, same as the first. And then on the 5th week, if there is one, this is on Mondays at 7, is a surprise net. If we told you what it was, it wouldn't be a surprise. That's an active participation is encouraged. I'll get this right eventually. What can I say? Okay. I'm out of practice. I haven't done this for months and months. Let's see. Oh, Saturday nets. I'm also trying to do the feed here too, the live feed. So I'm struggling along. We have Skynet. Saturday nights we have TechNet from 7 to 8. All questions about ham radio related are encouraged. We have Swap Meet, Rookies, Corners, News and Information, and ham radio events and contests. Skynet, which is what you're listening to now, you know what that's about. And Afterglow Movie Net, which you just heard about. I'll give you the details of what it is here in just a minute. Very entertaining, let's say. Then we have daily, the ARRL Net, National Traffic System Training Net. That is from 6:30 till 7 o'clock. Learn how message traffic handled on this formal training net. Newbies are welcome to check in, as this is a training net. They also have a second net on the Irving repeater, W5CKF, frequency 146.72 at 9:30 p.m. That one's a formal net. You kind of have to know what you're doing on that one, but it's certainly check-ins are welcome on any and all of those nets. Now it's time for my highly accurate information on tonight's Afterglow MoveNet, which Tony did mention. W.D. Du Bois looked to George Washington Carver to deliver on the radioactive peanut rocket fuel. Check. It glowed brilliantly. The crew, 3 black astronauts, saw Mars as a little more welcoming than the corner store or the folks across town. It was a bit safer, too. They were well motivated to leave planet Earth. They climbed aboard the spaceship and sailed to the heavens, a future unknown. That is until they landed and discovered a world transformed of black and white film stock to the more expensive one of Technicolor. Strange, they thought. Didn't this happen in The Wizard of Oz? Yes, it did. And the only 2 characters of color, well, now of color, were green to be exact, and both died either at the beginning or the end of the film. The future seemed far from certain, and I can't talk tonight. Join us for the quirky and edgy comedy Destination Planet Negro from 2013. Actually got some pretty good reviews. It's available for free on Tubi TV. I think it's also on YouTube as well. You can go to the link for Skynet, and you'll find the hot link to the film if you want to catch it. Although it's an hour and 40 minutes, it's a little late now, but if you want to, you can still do so. You can keep up with the DARC events, nets, and activities by going to the club website, W5FC.org. All right, let's see if there's anyone else. Do I have additional check-ins or any questions to anything I presented? Please come with your call. And if you're a new check-in, your name and your location. Okay, very quiet out there. We'll go ahead and move on to Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas events, where and when you can look through a telescope. It's going to be Chaz, KF5JHA. Chaz, what do you have for us this evening from KE5, ICX?
Good evening, everyone. This is KF5JHA, Chaz. I was happy to see several of you at the Skywarn training today. That was in Garland. Hope to see all of you again sometime soon. On February the 27th, that's in just about a week, actually 6 days, is the next Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas Club meeting. The meeting will be held at 7:30 p.m. in person at the University of Texas at Dallas. That's on Campbell Road. There's also a Zoom component for members. The featured speaker is going to be Don Picken. His topic's going to be a library telescope program. Yep, you can borrow a telescope. Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas also hosts Saturday night public observing sessions in this area. Skynet was picked to be on Saturday night so that there could be live reports from the Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas public observing sessions. On the 3rd Saturday of the month, that would be tonight, the stargazing is held at Cedar Hill. Do we have a ham radio operator at the stargazing that would like to make a report? Come down with your call sign. Well, we have a lot of things up there in the sky: Saturn, the moon, Jupiter, nebula like M42, that's the Orion Nebula, star clusters like M41, that's an open cluster in Canis Major, and much, much more in the sky to see. All right, well, that's what you could see if you were at one of the observing sessions tonight's at Cedar Hill. All right, you can check the TASS website, Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas website, at texasastro.org for up-to-date information and details about meetings and public observing sessions. And this is KF5JHA. Back to our night control. Tom, it's yours.
Thank you, Chaz, and we'll be back to you in just a little bit. Next up is National National Space Society events and activities. This would be handled by Bill, N5BB. He's checked in. So, Bill, what do you have for us for that from KE5 ICX?
Hello, Tom and the Net. This is N5BB. I'm sorry I'm running slightly late here. I just a few seconds ago transferred the updated script to the main script. Okay. So, this is N5BB. I happen to be the Vice President and the Membership Director of the National Space Society North Texas Chapter. You can reach me at space@byrom. That's space@byrom.net. The National Space Society is a nonprofit group based in the U.S. which is interested in the exploration and development of space and the creation of a spacefaring civilization. Our local National Space Society chapter website is ntx.nss.org. Our group also has a Facebook page. Just type National Space Society of North Texas into the search box. The North Texas chapter of the National Space Society meets at 3:30 p.m. on the second Sunday afternoon of each month at Spring Creek Barbecue on Highway 183 in Irving. The speaker at our last meeting, or February meeting, was Min Win of Exorbita, a Dallas-based company which will detect sub-centimeter space debris in real time using sensors mounted on the spacecraft. Our March chapter meeting will be held on Sunday afternoon, March the 8th, at that same Spring Creek Barbecue venue. Our local National Space Society chapter is sponsoring space-related special award prizes at the Dallas Regional Science and Engineering Fair event at Fair Park in Dallas next Saturday, February the 28th, a week from today. On the last Friday of each month, in the evening from 6 to 8 p.m., the National Space Society North Texas chapter sponsors a social event called Space Rendezvous at Cheddar's Restaurant, 700 West Highway 635 in Irving. You do not need to be a member of any organization to attend. The next Space Rendezvous will be held this coming Friday, February 27th. Again, it's the last Friday of the month from 6 p.m. at Cheddar's Restaurant in North Irving. The big National Space Society event each year is the International Space Development Conference, ISDC. ISDC 2026 will be held in Tysons Corner, Virginia, which is not far from Washington, D.C. The dates are June 4th through 7th, 2026, and registration is now open. I'm not sure if it'll be given somewhere else in this net, so an update on the Artemis program. The Artemis 2 capsule, which is going to carry astronauts around the moon, they will not land on the moon, but around the moon, has been delayed a little bit more. There was a dress rehearsal, a wet test. I believe it was yesterday, if I remember correctly. I'll make it my dates wrong by a day. This was the second wet test. The first one had a problem with leaks. The second one had no problems with leaks. However, overnight, they checked the helium purge system. That's a system that pressurizes fuel tanks with helium, and it purges fuel from the rocket engines. That system did not work. They had similar problem with that with Artemis 1 back in, I think it was 3 years ago. They thought they'd fixed it, but obviously it's crept back up again. Because of this, they're going to have to move the rocket, which is currently on the launch pad, back to the vehicle assembly building. And you know what that means? They will not be launching on March the 6th. In fact, they probably won't be launching in March. So this is going to delay the launch to a later date here, the next couple of months. That's unfortunate, but of course they need to be very, very safe. If you have any questions about the National Space Society, please contact Bill, N5BB, that's November 5 Bravo Bravo, at his QRZ-listed email address or at space@byram.net. And by the way, the person that posted on X the news about the Artemis 2 delay was the new current administrator of NASA, Jared Isaacman. And a couple of years ago, he was one of the featured speakers at ISDC, International Space Development Conference. So if you've been there, you could have met him and talked with him at lunch or something. That's all I've got. This is N5BB, back to net.
All right, thank you, Bill. And this is JE5ITX. Yes, we have it covered in the space news section that Gus will be bringing up here in a little bit. So we'll have some additional information on that. Okay, tonight's topic, discussion topic of the evening, is presented by me, Net Control. I get to make that choice. And what I picked was a recent article and a little bit of a white paper about entitled, Life on Earth is Lucky. A rare chemical fluke may have made our planet habitable. Now, a lot of people have mentioned through the years, you know, why can we not find life elsewhere in the universe? It should be teeming with life and probably intelligent life. Well, this may be the Fermi paradox answered. I'm not sure yet, but at any rate, this is an interesting article, and I'll go ahead and read it rather than describe it. So part of this from the white paper, the first part is that, and then the more popular version of it, more of a higher level look at it, is interesting. But this first part I thought was really kind of set the stage, so I'm going to go ahead and read it. For more than 5,500 exoplanets have been discovered, among which smaller planets seem to be the rule rather than the exception. Indeed, many rocky planets have been discovered, which we are now beginning to characterize according to mass, radius, and chemical composition. This emerging wealth of data resists the possibility of detecting habitable worlds and perhaps establishing the presence of life beyond Earth. The distribution of life in the universe is likely to be determined in large part by habitable zones. Such habitable zones may be conceptualized in a variety of ways, including in spatial terms, for example, the circumstellar habitable zone, where liquid water may exist at the surface of the orbiting bodies, and in terms of intensive parameters, such as the pressures and temperatures where life as we know it can survive. Here we focus on another region of the physiochemical parameter space that determines planetary habitability, and that's the presence of necessary concentrations of bioessential elements for biospheres to exist and to thrive. For example, phosphorus, which is, if you're looking at the video version, is P on that chart, and then nitrogen, which is N. We refer to this concept as the chemical habitability Goldilocks zone, defined in relation to this spectrum of possible rocky planet compositions. Both the bulk and surface available abundance of bioessential elements in the planet are challenging to infer from observation. However, the surface availability of nutrients on any given is largely regulated through understood processes. One of the most critical of these processes is core formation. Core formation takes place by the segregation of metal during the planet's magna-ocean epoch, and it may sequester a large fraction of the planetary interior inventory of bioessential elements. Bioessential elements in the core are effectively permanently unavailable to life. This is in contrast to mantle material, which may melt to form crustal rocks and can be broken down by chemical processes to release the nutrients into the surface environment. Although there are many steps between the formation of planetary mantle and the release of many nutrients contained within it into a potentially habitable surface environment, the composition of that mantle is the primary factor in governing the final availability of nutrients at the surface. In other words, almost all nutrients used by life on a planet must ultimately be sourced from the mantle. Core formation, in particular, plays a pivotal role in determining the inventory of P and N available to life. In focusing on core formation, we implicitly assume that the final availability of P and N to life depends primarily on the initial planetary inventory of these elements and how reducing and oxidizing the planet is. The compositional link between stars and their planets provides constraints on the hard-to-estimate initial P-N budgets and planetary Fe to FeO of it's iron and iron oxygen, I believe, exoplanets based on an easier-to-measure stellar P-N and Fe budgets and planetary mass relationships. Then it goes into the weeds and very, very technical. But as you can see, the bottom line is that the nutrients that are necessary have to come from deep in the planetary mantle and to the surface and then be released. So here is the article from space.com. It says life on Earth may exist thanks to the incredible stroke of luck, a chemical sweet spot that most planets miss during their formation, but ours managed to hit. A new study shows, the one I read to you, that Earth formed under an unusually precise set of chemical conditions that allowed it to retain two elements essential for life as we know it, phosphorus and nitrogen, or the P and N. Without a perfect balance of these elements, a rocky planet could appear habitable on the surface, yet be fundamentally incapable of supporting biology, according to this study. During the formation of the planet's core, there needs to be exactly the right amount of oxygen present so that the phosphorus and nitrogen can remain on the surface of the planet, said Craig Walton. He's the lead author. Earth seems to have hit this delicate chemical sweet spot during its formation nearly 4.6 billion years ago, and the new findings could change how scientists search for alien life. When young planets form, they are often primarily or fully molten, as heavy metals sink inward to form the core. Lighter materials remain closer to the surface during this chaotic stage, known as core formation. The amount of oxygen present plays a decisive role in determining where other elements end up and whether they remain accessible for future life. The study suggests that oxygen levels must fall within a surprisingly narrow range for both phosphorus and nitrogen to stay in the planet's mantle and crust. Too little oxygen and phosphorus bonds with iron and is dragged into the core, depriving the surface of the key ingredients for DNA, cell membranes, and energy transfer. Too much oxygen and nitrogen is easily lost to space. Either way, the chemistry needed for life never fully comes together. Using models of planetary formation and geochemical behavior, the researchers found that Earth sits squarely inside this narrow range of medium-level oxygen, which they called the chemical Goldilocks zone. Ultimately, our planet retained enough phosphorus and nitrogen to later fuel biology, a result that may be far from common among rocky worlds. Our models clearly show that the Earth is precisely within this range, Walton said in a statement. If we had just a little more or a little less oxygen during core formation, there would not have been enough phosphorus or nitrogen for the development of life. Conversely, researchers also modeled the foundation on other planets such as Mars, where oxygen levels were outside this chemical Goldilocks zone. On Mars, for example, the models show more phosphorus in the mantle than on the Earth, but less nitrogen, creating challenging conditions for life as we know it, according to the statement. The findings challenge the traditional focus on the habitable zone, the region around the star where liquid water can exist. While water is critical, the study suggests it may also be only part of the story. A planet could orbit at the right distance from its star and still lack the internal chemical inventory required for life to emerge. Crucially, the oxygen conditions that shape this process are linked to the chemical makeup of the host star itself. Because planets form from the same material as their stars, stellar chemistry can hint at whether a system is even capable of producing life-friendly planets in the first place. If the researchers are right, Earth may be less a cosmic norm and more a fortunate exception, a planet that could hit a rare chemical jackpot early on. Using Earth as a benchmark could help scientists zero in on exoplanets that are most likely to have the perfect balance of elements essential for life. This makes searching for life on other planets a lot more specific, Walton said. We should look for solar systems with stars that resemble our own sun. Their findings were published February 9th in the journal Nature. Nature Astronomy, it's called. So there you have it. Does anyone have any questions or have any comments? Please come into your call now. All right, well, that's just fine. We'll go ahead and move on to the next section of the net, which would be Was Up. We call on Chaz, KF5JHA, for that part. So, Chaz, Was Up?
Thank you, Tom. Good evening, everyone. Once again, this is KF5JHA Chaz. And let's see, I'm scrolling through the script. We call this segment of Skynet Was Up because it's all about what's going on astronomically over the last couple of weeks and what will take place over the next couple of weeks and beyond. That was slide number 2. By the way, I'm going to say slide numbers. That has to do with the video version of Skynet. Skynet can be seen on YouTube, a video version of it. To do that, just go to W5FC.org website and click on the link for a YouTube version of Skynet. We also have past Skynet recorded sitting on our YouTube channel. Yeah, there you go. Slide Master, slide number 3. We've talked about the predicted nova of the star T Corona Borealis. I didn't say supernova, I said nova, which may erupt at any time. It is currently at a brightness of 10th magnitude. I just checked it just a few minutes ago. It is much too faint to be seen with just your 2 eyes. T Corona Borealis was supposed to go nova more than a year ago. One recent prediction was for it to go nova on November the 10th, 2025. Well, that did not happen. So another prediction is on June the 25th of this year. When it does go nova, T Corona Borealis could become as bright as the North Star, which is a 2nd magnitude. The 2nd magnitude star that's similar to that, well, I should say the North Star is 2nd magnitude, and I can see the North Star with just my 2 eyes with my very light polluted location in Mesquite. Slide Master, slide number 4. This image of the sun was taken on February the 18th, 2026, just a few days ago. I took this picture from the website spaceweather.com. The large sunspot complexes on the sun are so large at times that you can just use your solar eclipse sunglasses. Yep, those sunglasses you had for the solar eclipse, you could use those and see them. I did that a couple of weeks ago. The sun is very near its 11-year solar maximum. We're not quite sure when the solar maximum will occur until after it happens. I presented information on the solar cycle just a couple of months ago on Skynet. Slide Master, slide number 5. Last week on Skynet, Gus talked about the asteroid that passed close to us than the moon. Yep, I mentioned the same thing, saying that this happens about once a week on average. Well, this last week, we didn't have one, nor two, nor three asteroids pass closer to us than the moon. But we had 4 of them. Most of the time, we spot these asteroids on the way out, away from us, rather than on the way headed toward us. The graphic that you're looking at is one that I took from spaceweather.com as well. Most of these things are just a few meters across. Slide Master, slide number 6. New moon was on February the 17th, so the current phase of the moon is a waxing crescent. Did you go out and take a look at it? It's clear in North Texas right now. Go out and take a look. The first quarter moon phase will be on February the 24th, just in a few days. Also on February 24th, the moon is at perigee, which is the point in the moon's orbit that is closest to the Earth at a distance of 370,135 kilometers. Full moon is on March the 3rd, and there's a total lunar eclipse on March 3rd. More about that a little bit later on. On March the 10th, the moon is at apogee, which is the point in the moon's orbit that is furthest from the Earth at a distance of 404,385 kilometers. Slide Master, slide number 7. I'm so glad Bobcat is not near the computer. If I pay more attention to the computer than him, he likes to lay on the computer. February the 23rd will be the conjunction of the moon, the planet Uranus, and the Pleiades in the western evening sky. You'll need at least a pair of binoculars to see the planet Uranus. I've seen it with binoculars. Yep, you can do it. Yep, even inside the city. Slide Master, slide number 8. On February the 26th, the moon and Jupiter are in conjunction in the evening sky. Slide Master, slide number 9. Early in the evening of February the 27th, low in the western evening sky, Venus and Mercury are in conjunction and are only about 4 degrees away from each other. A pair of binoculars will help you spotting them in the evening twilight sky. Now, just to let you know, I got an email from my brother. This is not on a graphic, but he said, hey, something says that there's a whole bunch of planets gathering together in the evening sky on February 28th. Well, it's happening right now. We can see all the planets except Mars. Well, we can't include Pluto in that. In the evening sky right now. Go take a look. If you've got a telescope, you can get Uranus and Neptune as well. Slide Master, slide number 10. The moon and the bright star Regulus is in conjunction in the western evening sky on March the 2nd. Slide Master, slide number 11. A lunar eclipse occurs when the moon moves into the shadow of the Earth. Most of the time, the moon moves just a little bit above the Earth's shadow, or sometimes below it, as it orbits. But a couple of times a year, the moon travels into the Earth's shadow. There's a lighter part of the Earth's shadow called the penumbra, and a darker part of the Earth's shadow called the umbra. When the moon moves completely into the umbra shadow of the Earth, we call it a total lunar eclipse. The eclipse on March the 3rd, yep, that's coming up, a little bit more than a week. March the 3rd is called a total lunar eclipse. Yep, that's what we have in March the 3rd. The total lunar eclipse we had visible here in the Dallas area was March the 13th, 14th, just last year. The next total lunar eclipse visible in the Dallas area is going to be in a few years, June the 26th, 2029. We have some partial ones between now and then, but the next total one is June 26th, 2029. So, let me give you some details about the eclipse on March the 3rd. The moon enters the penumbra, that's the lighter part of the Earth's shadow, at 2:44 a.m. That's Central Standard Time. That's difficult to notice. The moon enters the umbra at 3:50 a.m., and that's when the eclipse really comes visible with the naked eye. So you need just your 2 eyeballs. A pair of binoculars is great, too. Totality begins at 5:09. That's when the moon's completely inside the Earth's shadow. The middle of the eclipse, which is the maximum eclipse, is at 5:35 a.m. Central Standard Time. Totality ends when the moon starts moving out of the Earth's shadow, the umbra, at 6:03 a.m. The moon leaves the umbra completely at 7:17, and the moon is completely out of the penumbra at 8:23 a.m. and the eclipse ends. Now, the moon sets here in the North Dallas area, the North Texas area, about 6:56 a.m. Central Standard Time. So Dallas Metroplex will only see the last part of the eclipse, will not see the last part of the eclipse. But most of the eclipse is visible as long as it's clear. I hope it's clear. I hope you get some images, and I'll share this with you on Skynet. This is KF5JHA, and this is Skynet. Slide master, slide number 12. Now, do any of you out there in Radio Land have a question, or maybe you need a fill, or just have a general astronomy question? My degree's in astrophysics, I might be able to answer it, or maybe one of our experts on Skynet can answer the question too. Come now with your call sign if you have a question or need a fill. Okay, hearing nothing. Well, slide 13. So as the moon wanes in the next couple of weeks, so do these words for this segment of Skynet. Stay safe, keep well, pray for our world. It's the only one where humans live right now. And until next time, actually I'll be doing another segment on Skynet in a few minutes. Keep looking up so you know what's up. And this is KF5JJ, and this is Skynet, transmitting on the W5FC repeater, 146.88 megahertz out of Dallas, Texas. Skynet is also available on Echolink and YouTube. Back to our net control. Tom, it's all yours.
And thank you, Chaz. And this is KE5ICS. I'm Tom. I'm in Corpus Christi. I'm not even in Dallas anymore. I miss you guys. So let me go ahead and update here. We've got K9AHO. That's Brian over in Terrell, Texas. Welcome, Brian. And I'll take additional check-ins. If you'd like to join us this evening and not checked in yet, now you can. Please come with your call sign, your name, and where you're transmitting from. Well, it's hard to compete with the Winter Olympics. Well, we'll go on to the next section. This would be space exploration and space history. That's handled by Gus, W5GUS. Gus, what do you have for us this evening from KB5 ICS?
Okay, thank you, Tom. W5GUS here with the space history and space events. Let's see. Bill probably covered the Artemis 2 mission and postponement pretty well in his comments so far. About the only thing I can add is that despite the setback of the next launch, the data gathered during the rehearsal provides vital insight for ensuring a successful crewed flight of the Artemis 2 mission. Okay, we will move to a SpaceX Falcon 9 rocket lifted off from Kennedy Space Center carrying a Crew 12 mission into orbit to the ISS, International Space Station. This flight marks another routine but essential rotation of personnel for the International Space Station. The Dragon spacecraft is carrying 4 international astronauts who will spend approximately 6 months in microgravity. Following a series of orbital maneuvers, the vehicle is scheduled to dock autonomously with the station's Harmony module. Once aboard, the crew will conduct a wide range of scientific experiments focusing on human health and materials in space. The first stage of the Falcon 9 returned to Earth and landed perfectly on a drone ship in the Atlantic Ocean. This successful mission continues to demonstrate the reliability and efficiency of commercial crew transportation services. And speaking of commercial services, the SpaceX launched its 600th Falcon 9 rocket to date, carrying Starlink satellites from Vandenberg Space Force Base. The rocket carried 24 Starlink V2 mini satellites into low Earth orbit. Okay, and we'll move to the James Webb Telescope. An international team of researchers has uncovered new insights into the upper atmosphere of Uranus, where ions swirling above the ice giant planet's clouds meet the magnetic field surrounding the world, the planet. Using near-infrared spectrograph, NIR SPEC, instrument aboard the James Webb Space Telescope, the team studied Uranus as it rotated. The researchers observed how temperature and charged particles vary with height across the planet. According to the statement, the resulting data could help scientists understand more about how energy behaves in ice giants' upper layers. And now we'll talk a little about the supermassive serial killers, black holes. Scientists have long suspected that active supermassive black holes can kill their own host galaxies, but new research suggests these cosmic titans are more like serial killers that can extend their murderous rampage across many light years and destroy neighboring galaxies as well. For scientists, death for a galaxy means the curtailing of star formation. Supermassive black holes are known to cause this when they are actively feeding, as they heat their larder of gas and dust, provoking that matter content to emit powerful radiation. This radiation either pushes away gas, the building blocks of stars, thereby starving the galaxies and black holes themselves, or simply heats that gas and prevents it from cooling enough to collapse and birth a stellar body. Both outcomes can slow or even stop star formation. Okay, let's move to space-related birthdays. February 18th, 1930, Theodore Freeman was born. He selected in NASA's third group of astronauts in 1963. He was the first American astronaut to die in a flight accident during training. Okay, next on February 19th, 1932, Joseph Kerwin was born. First American medical doctor to fly in space during the Skylab 2 mission. He spent 28 days in orbit, performing medical experiments and EVAs. And it looks like he had a ham license also, WM4N, Whiskey Magic 4 November was his ham license ID. Okay, next was February 19, 1952, another ham, it looks like, Rodolfo Neri Vela. As the first Mexican citizen to fly in space. Serving as a payload specialist, he conducted experiments and helped deploy several communication satellites. His AMCA was XE1NV, X-ray Echo 1 November Victor. Okay, born February 19, 1952. Okay, February 19th also, but in 1948, Byron Lichtenberg. He was on STS-9, STS-45. First payload specialist to fly on a space shuttle mission. He conducted extensive life sciences and materials research in the Space Lab module. Okay, February 20th, Joseph Walker was born in 1921. He was a legendary research pilot who flew the X-15 rocket plane to space twice. He set multiple altitude and speed records for winged aircraft in the 1960s. Okay, we'll move to February 21st. Mark Kelly was born in 1964. Commanded the final flight of the Space Shuttle Endeavour in 2011. He's one of the few astronauts to have flown on 4 separate shuttle missions. Okay, February 21st, Scott Kelly, 1964, famous for spending a continuous year in space aboard the International Space Station. His mission provided critical orbital data on the long-term effects of weightlessness on humans. And if I were, we'll go to February 22nd, James Bagian, born 1952, February 22nd, physician astronaut who developed successful treatments for space motion sickness. He participated in the first dedicated life science mission on the shuttle. Okay, we will move to this week in space history. Astronomer Gerard Cooper discovered Miranda, the smallest and innermost of Uranus' 5 major moons, using the 82-inch telescope at McDonald Observatory out there in West Texas. Miranda is known for its incredibly complex and varied surface, featuring massive canyons, ridged plains, and bizarre chevron-shaped features. The moon's unique topography suggests a history of intense geological activity, possibly caused by tidal heating or past impacts. Images captured by the Voyager 2 spacecraft in 1986 reveal cliffs that are among the highest and most dramatic in the solar system. This discovery expanded our knowledge of the outer solar system and the diverse geological processes that shape small moons. Okay, NASA's Perseverance rover successfully touched down on Mars' Jezero crater after a complex 7 minutes of terror entry and descent. This is February 18th, 2021. This advanced robotic explorer was specifically designed to search for signs of ancient microbial life on the red planet. The mission also featured the deployment of Ingenuity, the first helicopter to achieve powered control flight on another world. Perseverance is currently collecting soil and rock samples that are intended for return to Earth by a future mission. This historic landing significantly advanced our understanding of Mars' geology and its potential for past habitability. then February 19th, 1986, the Soviet Union launched the core module of the Mir space station, marking the beginning of the first modular orbital outpost. This central component provided the main living quarters and life support systems for the station's residents over the next 15 years. Mir, MIR, served as a unique international laboratory where cosmonauts and astronauts conducted groundbreaking scientific research in microgravity. It held the record for the longest continuous human presence in space until that was surpassed by the International Space Station. The Mir station's legacy continues to influence the design and operation of modern modular space habitats. Okay, on February 20th, 1962, John Glenn became the first American to orbit the Earth, a pivotal moment in the space race. Launched atop an Atlas rocket, his Friendship 7 spacecraft circled a globe 3 times during its nearly 5-hour flight. Despite a faulty sensor indicating a loose heat shield, Glenn successfully manually controlled the capsule's attitude during the critical re-entry phase. The mission's success restored national pride and proved that the U.S. could compete with the Soviet Union in manned spaceflight. Glenn's bravery and the mission technical's achievement cemented his status as a legendary figure in aerospace history. All right, and the last item is another thing. Soviet Union launched Cosmos 110. This was February 22nd, 1966. Launched Cosmos 110, a biological research mission carrying 2 dogs named Vitorok and Ugolok into a high-altitude orbit. The mission was designed to study the long-term effects of radiation and prolonged weightlessness on living organisms before long-term duration human flight. The dogs spent 22 days in space, which remained a record for canine space travel and was not surpassed by humans until the Skylab missions. Upon their return, the dogs were found to be weakened, but eventually made a full recovery, providing vital biological data. This mission was a crucial stepping stone in ensuring the safety of future cosmonauts during extended stays in Earth's orbit. Okay, and with that, we'll turn it back to Tom, back to net control, and anticipate some jokes from Miss Carolyn's Constellations of the Week. Back to you, Tom, W5GUS.
And thank you, Gus, and this is KE5ICX. We'll move on to the next session, which is Miss Carolyn's Constellation of the Week. That's done by Jazz. Jazz, come on back. KF5JJ from KE5ICX.
Thank you so much, Tom. Thank you, Gus, for the last segment. You have a plethora of information. That's awesome. And you know what? Food distracts Bob the cat, so I can do this segment. Slide Master, slide number 14. Miss Carolyn's Constellation of the Week is named in honor of Silent Key, Carolyn, KC50ZT. Carolyn contributed to Skynet each week from its beginning in 2012. Yep, we've been doing Skynet since 2012, until May of 2019, with a detailed look at one particular constellation each week. Since there are about 52 easily visible constellations seen in Texas throughout the year out of the 88 total number of constellations, so Miss Carolyn covered the entire sky as seen over North Texas in a year. And in her honor, we've continued that tradition of a constellation per week and named this segment after her. Miss Carolyn's Constellation of the Week this week is Auriga, or sometimes called Auriga the Charioteer, or the Shepherd? Auriga or Auriga, I'll probably pronounce it each way during this segment. The Charioteer is a constellation known since ancient times. There are a number of stories and legends of Auriga associated with. One is that it introduced the four-horse chariot into Athens. Auriga has also been said to represent the ill-fated charioteer of King Omesis, who ultimately died as a result of his involvement in a plot to betray the king. Lots of stories with this constellation. And Slide Master, slide number 15, what Gus was talking about, the jokes of the week. Okay, here we go. Now, if you don't know the rules of the jokes of the week, if you're over here logged in on Echolink, you can sit there and boo and hiss on the chat session with the intent of responding to the jokes. If you're online on the YouTube version of it, you can type in the chat session what you think of it, but here we go. I tried to be impartial in the chariot races, but I have to admit, I'm with her. H-U-R, get it? I'm with her. Oh, well. What did the chariot say after the parting of the Red Sea? I'm all washed up. Come on, these are funny. What did the left chariot wheel say to the right chariot wheel? This is an easy one. Come on, you can get this one. I'll see you around. And the last one in tonight's segment, what do you call the chariot's pony after it coughs? With the little horse, of course. Sounds like Mr. Ed's thing. Oh, well. Slide Master, slide number 16. Capella Alpha Auriga, which means the she-goat or the little she-goat, is the brightest star in Auriga. Auriga is usually depicted with its mother, a goat, and her kids on its left shoulder and arm, and Capella represents the goat. And the nearby triangle of Epsilon, Eta, and Zeta represent the kids. It's a triangle of stars in Auriga. Capella is actually a multiple star system with two main components, Capella A and Capella B, being a G-type stars that are also giants. One estimate is that when the diameters are about 7 and 13 times that of our sun. They orbit each other in a distance of about 60 million miles, and they are therefore too close to each other to be split with even the largest telescopes. There are two more components of Capella's system, with two fainter red dwarf stars that orbit each other. This pair of red dwarf stars orbits the main pair of distance about 11,000 astronomical units, or 0.17 light years. The entire Capellan system lies about 42 light years from the Earth. Beta Auriga, which is an A-type white star, is about 166 light years away. It's known for its strong magnetic field and its overabundance of silicon, chromium, and iron. It's also a double star that is noted for being difficult to split, requiring good optics and a good night of seeing, steady atmosphere. The companion is a 7.2 G-type star, and it's nearby twin of our sun. It's very close to the same spectral type of our sun, separated from the primary star only about 4 arc seconds. And this is KF5JJ, and this is Skynet. Slide Master, slide number 17. Auriga is also known for its open clusters. It has 3 bright, easy-to-find open clusters. They're Messier objects. M36 is the first of these that I'll talk about. And Deep Sky Wonders, Walter Scott Houston wrote that the cluster has about 60 stars, but it looks sparse in comparison to M37. Stephen James Amira, in his book Messier Objects, writes that the brighter members of the cluster shine at about 9th to 11th magnitude, but in front of a hazy background caused by feeble light coming from 13th and 14th magnitude stars. A number of the observers wrote that they can see a cross shape formed by the central stars of the cluster. John Malus, in his book, The Messier Album, notes that the outward streamers of the faint stars give the cluster a crab-like appearance. Slide master, slide number 18. You might note that all three of these open clusters, M36, 37, 38, can be seen easily with a pair of binoculars. So, slide 18 is M37 of the three Messier objects on Auriga, M36, 37, 38. Most agree that M37 is the most striking. Walter Scott Houston said that it was the prettiest of the three. Burnham wrote that it unusually considered the finest of the three Messier open clusters in Auriga. Stephen James Demira wrote that telescopically M37 is much more wonderful in sight than either M36 or 38. John Malus describes it as one of the finest open clusters in the heavens. That's interesting because, you know, the Pleiades star cluster is an open cluster as well. M37 is a richer cluster than M36, having about 150 brighter stars, more than twice that of M36, including all of the fainter stars. The total stellar population of M37 could be more than 500 stars. Also, unlike M36, which contains mostly blue-white stars, M37 has white stars and even some red giants. A number of different authors have noted that a ninth magnitude star that's red might be stands out near the center of the cluster. It's a ruby on a field of diamonds. Huh. Interesting what it looks like. Slide master, slide number 19. Messier object number 38. In terms of stellar density, M38 falls between M36 and 37 as far as density. Has about 100 to 120 stars, greater than M36, 60 stars, but well short of M37's estimated 500 stars. Like M36, a number of observers over the years have noticed the cross shape formed by the central stars of the cluster. T.W. Webb, Houston, O'Meara, and Burnham noted, although Burnham was quoting Webb and John Malus and did not notice it when he was using a now classic 4-inch unitron refractor while observing it for his book, The Messier Album. So all three open clusters look very similar in binoculars or a finer scope. M36, 37, and 38 are quite different in appearance in a telescope. And that is KF5JJ Skynet. Just a couple more slides. Slide number 20. Okay, there's a few more Astronomical League observing program objects in the constellation of Auriga, the Charioteer, or the Shepherd. I've given you just a sampling of some of those objects. The Astronomical League has, at last count, 96 different observing programs. Most of them have about 100 objects. Now, if you observe just 10 different objects in an observing program each month, then you can earn an observing certificate and a pen in about a year from the Astronomical League. Slide master, slide number 21. That is Miss Carolyn's Constellation of the Auriga. I want to thank my friends Dave Hutchinson and Dennis Harwell for the research and words on deep sky objects that I use, borrow, and steal for every Skynet. I also at times use the website constellation-guide.com for information. The next week we'll take a look at another constellation, Canis Major, the big dog. And this is KF5JJ Chaz saying good night, 73, and back to our net control. Tom, it's all back to you.
Thank you, Chaz. Thanks for your segments this evening. It's most appreciated. This is KE5ICX Net Control for tonight's Skynet. I'll go ahead and see if there's any additional check-ins. Let's see. We got Brian checked in from the previous. Anyone out there who would like to check in this evening, please come and you call site name, where you're transmitting from. All right, we'll continue on. two segments, space launches for this week. This information comes from spaceflightnow.com/launch schedule. We do have a launch, or we did have a launch, probably about 2 hours ago. This is from Cape Canaveral Space Force Station. This is Starlink 6-104. We'll skip over that. There was some live coverage. I don't know if it did take off, but tomorrow we do have a mission. This will be February 20. No, I stand corrected. This is here February 24th, Falcon 9, Starlink 17-26 launch. This one will be from Vandenberg Space Force in California. This will be a launch of 25 Starlink V2 mini optimized satellites into low Earth orbit. 8 minutes after liftoff, first stage booster will return and land on a drone ship. Of course, I still love you. February 24th, Falcon 9 Starlink 6-110 mission. This one will launch from SLC-40 at Cape Canaveral with 29 Starlink V2 mini optimized satellites. The first stage booster will land 8 minutes later on the drone ship. Just read the instructions, positioned in the Atlantic Ocean. February 27th, we have a mission called Alpha Stairway to Heaven. This is from Vandenberg Space Force Base in the SLC-2. Firefly Aerospace will launch the Alpha rocket to return to flight mission following an anomaly seen in the Alpha Flight 6. The rocket will carry what the company calls a test demo payload. It will also test out new systems that will fully roll out on Firefly's Block 2 configuration of a rocket on Alpha Flight 8. February 27th, also another Falcon 9 launch, Starlink 6-108 from Vandenberg. This will be a 29 Starlink V2 mini optimized satellites for low Earth orbit. The first stage will return to the drone ship a shortfall of gravitas located in the Atlantic Ocean. Then, late February, New Glenn Bluebird 7 launch from Launch Complex 36 at Cape Canaveral. The rocket will launch an AST Space Mobile's Bluebird 7 satellite into low Earth orbit. This is the second satellite in AST Space Mobile's next generation satellite constellation, and is designed to support space-based cellular broadband for commercial and government customers. This will be the third launch of the New Glenn rocket to date. By the way, that thing is gigantic. It is a heavy class rocket. You've got to take a look at the graphics of it. This thing is somewhere between the Falcon, the Starship and the Saturn V. This is a huge rocket. February 8th, Falcon 9 Starlink 17-23 launches from Vandenberg SLC-4E with another 25 Starlink V2 mini optimized satellites for low Earth orbit. You know the rest. This will be landing, the first stage will land of course, I Still Love You drone ship in the Pacific Ocean 8 minutes later. Okay, since the next section is also mine, visible satellite passages over the next couple of weeks. This is from heavensabove.com. The information I give you is based on over at Louisville, Texas, in the Dallas area. That's where I used to live. And I haven't changed the Kepler information. So we have this is a minus 1.7 magnitude, 5:59 in the morning. It will reach its highest point at 25 degrees at 6:02, and it will fall to the east at 6:05. Tiangong, the other space station in orbit, has a good pass on February 23rd. This will be a minus 1.1 magnitude at 18:56 in the evening. It will reach its highest point at 45 degrees at 18:59, and it will fall to the southeast at 19:02. So it's a pretty good pass. There aren't a lot of them right now. I think that the sun is not in a favorable position for reflection off the two space stations, but these two passes are not bad. They're easily visible in the Dallas area. As long as it's clear out, that is. This is KE5ICX. We may end up a little early, but let me go ahead and ask them. you'd like to join us this evening, please come with your call sign, name, where you're transmitting from.
This is Whiskey Bravo 4, Mike Foxtrot, India, WB4MFI, Ted, Dallas, low power.
Well, I was beginning to worry about you, Ted. I'm glad you checked in. WB4MFI over in Dallas, low power. Anyone else? Okay, we'll go ahead and move. We do have some additional time, and there is a section here, if you're interested. We have astronomical Q&A. That means if you've got a question, we've got an answer. It may not be the right answer, but it's possible we might have an answer. We have the Brain Trust here, front and center. If you have a question, something you would like to ask of astronomical space or space exploration, this is your chance. Please come now with your call sign, and we will attempt to answer your question. Does anyone have any closing remarks? Okay, we'll go ahead and close it out then. Tonight we had 16 hands participating on the air, including myself. Thanks to all who checked in this evening. We hope you join us here next week and every Saturday night at 9 p.m. to discuss astronomy, space, and space exploration, because on this net, the sky is never the limit. We're always looking for net control stations for this and all the other DARC nets. If you'd like to try your hand at this, contact any of the net controls, or you can send an email to nets@w5fc.org. You can follow topics, discussions about this net and astronomy in general on Facebook and X, as well as our audio, video streams, video archives, and other useful internet resources. Yeah, we've got videos going back 12 years. Go to the w5fc.org website at the conclusion of this net. Till next Saturday night, this is Kilo Echo 5, India Charlie X-Ray Tom. I'll be closing the net at 22:23 local time and returning the repeater to normal amateur use. 7-3, everybody, and enjoy the evening discovering the universe. And at 10:30, please come back, and we will be discussing tonight's movie, which is called Destination Planet Negro from 2013. It's going to be an interesting discussion, everyone. Come back then. This is KE5I6. Clear until then.
normal state.
I'm completely operational and all my circuits are functioning perfectly.
Afterglow Movie Net.
All right, it's now 10:30 p.m. That's our regularly scheduled time for the Afterglow Movie Net. What is the Afterglow Movie Net, you ask? Well, mostly everybody knows, but if you're listening in for the first time tonight, I'll tell you. We watch a movie, usually of science fiction origin. That's the genre, and then we discuss it on Saturday night. What do we like about it? What we dislike about it? We talk about plot. We talk about characterization. We talk about the special effects, the lack of special effects, music, whatever it may be. Because science fiction has a tendency to go off the deep end because it is one of those really uncertain medias, whereas thrillers and musicals and, I don't know, drama and comedies are easy to define. The hard one is always science fiction. It's the most difficult, and fantasy as well. And it either goes well or it doesn't. We have a tendency to hit a lot of the misfires, but I think about 90% of all science fiction probably is misfires. And that's why we like it. It's like watching the Hindenburg going down. It's a horrible thing, but we can't look away. So, this week's movie is an unusual one. It was done in 2013. It's called Destination Planet Negro. It is a comedy. Now, I could not find a wiki on this, but I did find a reviews, and it has a story synopsis in it. This comes from Medium.com, which does review of movies. It's just a small site. Ashton Bashow is the guy who did the review of it in 2016. So this is what he says. Our story begins in 1939, presented in black and white as a throwback to the cheesy classic sci-fi movies. Prominent black leaders meet to discuss a plan for dealing with the rampant racism and segregation that defined the African-American experience of the Jim Crow era. Their best scientists step forward with a solution. Back to Africa? Nope. We have to leave the damn planet. And that was a direct quote. And thus begins the adventure with the revolutionary rocket fuel developed by George Washington Carver from peanuts and sweet potatoes. A small team consisting of father, daughter scientists Warrington and Benita Avery and ace pilot Captain Reese Johnson set a course to Mars to begin the colonization process to change the red planet into the black planet. Thanks to things go haywire rather than landing on Mars, our heroes find themselves flung off into the future, contemporary United States of America, in living color. Destination Planet Negro is a sci-fi spoof and social satire from Curran Wilmont, a filmmaker with very specific voice and whose works we've previously covered here at Synapse. I've tried to shine some attention on Wilmont, partially because he's local, but mostly because his films incorporate important themes that need to be part of our contemporary dialogue. Are his racial satires preachy? Yes, undeniably, but frequently insightful and pretty darned entertaining. Once our heroes arrive at their unplanned destination, the story takes a bold turn, no longer set in the race's past, but confronting our own contemporary attitudes as our explorers find themselves in modern Kansas City. So as far as we can tell, they've crash-landed on another planet or crossed into another dimension. It's through our outsider observations that Wilmot's writing brings humor, but more importantly, reanalyzes our culture. Some of these observations are savagely humorous. A sagging, do-ragged black man is mistaken for a malnourished field slave who can't even keep his pants up. Conversely, another black man in business suit with so many experiences and concepts, desegregation, smartphones, hip-hop music, the internet, a black president, modern politics, new friends, and George Washington Carver's picture on a peanut butter label, the travelers soak up as much as they can while deciding whether to stay or go back to their own time. The plot gets tied up in some draggy parts when our protagonists get involved with modern student activists and get caught up to speed on U.S. history. And here's where the movie is most overtly preachy and loses a lot of steam, but things pick up when the racial profiling incident lands them in jail, and Wilmot once again flexes his wry wit. Planet Negro is definitely a message movie, and with a low budget is evident, but it's also very funny. It's a pretty broad mix of gags, jive-talking George Washington Carver, a country-fried parody of Robbie the Robot, and some good old-fashioned slapstick. And like most time travel stories, there's plenty of fish-out-of-water type scenarios, but they feel smarter here as satire as our three travelers try to figure out modern America, skewering contemporary culture, black culture included, in the process. Even our heroes aren't off the hook. Race Johnson is forced to reassess his own sexism when he realizes he admires Bernita, but not mention learning that the three men who try to help him adjust to the future are gay and face their own challenges. In February 2013, says I had an opportunity to view Destination Planet Negro's premiere in Lawrence, Kansas, where Melmont teaches film studies at the University of Kansas. He goes on and he talks about, well, I can finish this, I guess. He says in this, Q&A followed the screening, and one of the things that Wilmot discussed, difficulty of finding distribution. 3 years later, it's only after his successes as co-writer of Chirag that the film finally got a meaningful release. When I watched the film in 2013, I enjoyed but found the racial commentary too hyperbolic. After all, this was a new post-racist millennium, or so I naively believed. Fast forward to 2014, and the fatal shooting of a black young man by a white police officer has not only engulfed the town of Ferguson, Missouri, in civil unrest, but ultimately proved to be just one story among a wave of similar incidents across the country. Once again, putting the conversation on race in the forefront of national conscience and serving up a reminder that shouldn't even be necessary. Yes, Black Lives Matter. I didn't understand it then, but I do now. Moreover, there's a hidden lesson in the movie's presentation shifts from black and white to color. He says, I don't know if the analogy was intentional or not. It feels overreaching. But at the same time, there's a critical truth here about moving past our old ideas of black and white and progressing to a future where different colors work together in harmony. So there you have it. You get a little bit of a feel for the film. Obviously, it is satire, and yes, it is a little edgy, and yes, it can be uncomfortable. But it also is pretty darn entertaining. So at least that's my opinion. I wish I had seen the whole thing. I actually got caught up in, well, believe it or not, a real estate agent. I was doing some business today that I didn't expect to be doing, and so I didn't get back to the film. More on that on another day. So with that, we'll go ahead and get started. I'll see if we got anybody out there. I'll start with folks that want to check in. Even if you haven't seen the movie, that's okay. We can discuss this type of film. I'm sure Blazing Saddles comes to mind as a comedy that has some edgy elements to it. So if not seen this film, we can certainly discuss that one too. So we'll go ahead and start with your call sign. Your 2013.
5, Bravo, Bravo. Bill and Irving. I saw the first part of this movie only.
November Tango 5, Tango Mike, Tony in Dallas. Yes, I saw the movie.
Kilo 9 Alpha Hotel Oscar, Brian and Terrell. I didn't see the movie, so I'll probably just listen along. K9 AHO.
November Victor 5 Foxtrot. This is Virginia, and I did see the movie.
AC5DL, Dave. Yes, I did see the movie.
Well, that wasn't too bad. We kind of light check-ins. They were doing on the first net, but this one seems to be doing okay. So we have the usual suspects. We got N5BB, that's Bill over in Irving. He saw parts of the film. NT5TM, Tony in Dallas, he saw the whole thing. K9AHO, Brian, he did not see the film. He's going to listen only, but we may ask him what he thinks about it along the way. NV5F Virginia, yes, she saw the film. AC5DC, that's Dave, yes, he saw the film. Additional check-ins, please come now. Okie doke, well, that's enough for a quorum, so we'll go ahead and get started. We'll go down the list as checked in, beginning with Bill, N5BB. Bill, you saw part of it. What did you think of what you saw from KE5, ICX?
Well, thank you, Tom. This is N5BB. I'm kind of confused. Number one, I was stymied by the stupid streaming advertising, which made it very difficult for me to kind of skip around and look at things, because it sat there and wanted to play 6 ads in a row before I could skip further, and it just made it just totally aggravating. So I was unable to skip around a lot and kind of see what was really going on. Initially, it looked to me like merely a tongue-in-cheek kind of Uncle Tom jive movie set up with common tropes. I mean, they were so stereotypical. And back in the 30s, and the premise was, of course, completely outlandish. Number one, they built a rocket with the help of a carver, and one guy had essentially built it, and it was going to take him to Mars. So that whole premise was just so completely outlandish that, you know, I didn't know whether to view this as a comedy or a farce, probably more of a farce. And then they are, well, this is weird. Did it already end? Maybe it ended sooner than I thought it was going to. Anyway, then they had to take off early, and they somehow arrived on what they thought was Mars, but obviously was traveling forward in time or to an alternate universe or something. I was kind of unclear about that initially. And it was silly because they're sitting there on what they think is Mars, and they're adjusting their helmets, and he's taking a leak and everything, and they think there's no oxygen, although I didn't see oxygen tanks on their spacecraft, but their helmets are kind of fooling around with like they're loose, they're not attached. So it just doesn't make any sense. It's like a little comedy skit you might see on Saturday Night Live or something. So it seemed to be the complete farce to me at that point. And then they seem to try to make some kind of social thing about going to the future, and they saw a kid with his butt hanging out, and I don't know. I lost track of all this. I kind of lost track of what the world was going on with this. What were they trying to do? Where were they? And I didn't figure it out. I guess if I'd had more time to see the whole thing from start to ending, maybe it would have been clear to me. But I just want to know from a top level, is this complete farce? Were they supposed to have actually gone to some alternate universe or to the future or something? Where did they end up and how? That's what I'd like to know. Because the piece I saw, I was just confused and didn't get any answers to any of that. So it was just kind of a little farce. That's all I got, I guess. Habitable.
All right, thank you, Bill. And this is KE5ICX. Okay, Tony, Bill sounds totally confused by the whole thing, so you're going to have to explain to him the movie, and to the rest of us, too, in case you were wondering. So you saw the whole thing. What did you think? NT5TM from KE5ICX.
Well, parts of it I found extremely funny, like he's too malnourished to hold up his pants. And Bill kind of anticipated, borrowed my thunder in advance there, because, yeah, I was thinking of this really has a lot of the properties of a really long Saturday Night Live skit. This guy is not a master of alternative history or science fiction. I mean, all the white people disappearing at the end, it's like, well, this is a gaping pothole. How do we decide who's white and what do Hispanic people count as, and blah, 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 blah. Scientific accuracy and genealogy were not the point. It was very broad, very heavy-handed in places, really goofy and fun in others. I half expected all those dapper gentlemen from the 30s, when they found themselves stuck in the future, to open an expensive men's clothing store run by people who know good suits when they see them. So yeah, a little long, a little broad, funny. It definitely kept me engaged. Once we got out of the boardroom sort of initial meeting with all the people in suits, I had no trouble pulling the characters apart. It was amusing. I think it got its... I'm not necessarily sure what its point was, but it certainly got me paying attention to it. And, hey, look at all these social roles and so off, and things that have changed and things that haven't changed. It was probably longer than it needed to be to do that. And definitely, I don't know if anything will ever be as funny as Blazing Saddles, but there's a reason Mel Brooks is so extremely famous. So, I found the plot engaging and funny, but, this is not hard sci-fi, I'll put it that way. It's much more like a skit.
I like Phil's use of that word. NT5TM.
Okay, thank you, Tony. Next up is, let's see, Brian said he didn't see it, but he's listening, so I'm going to skip over him for now. I'm going to go to Virginia, NB5F. Virginia, what did you think of the plot to tonight's movie, Destination Planet Negro from 2013?
Well, I thought the idea of using science fiction tropes to tell the story and give the framework for what the movie was trying to say. I thought that was a pretty good idea, and I thought I liked the science fiction stuff because it was tropey on purpose, and it was I thought it was pretty funny. There were things in it that reminded me of a million bad science fiction movies that we've seen, and I think that was the point of that, just to kind of give it a kind of a broad framework for something funny. I mean, everything you can think of, the rocket ship where they seem to always have a super roomy cabin in their rocket ship, and there's a guy who's a pilot, and he's just wearing sort of pilot attire, and he's running the rocket ship, and then there's always a father, there's always a professor who brings his daughter so that there can be a love interest in the rocket ship, and then they plan to go one place, and they end up going through some kind of a wormhole or a Rosen bridge, and they end up somewhere else, and they figure it out. They have to figure it out after they land, and the whole black and white to color thing. I thought that was cool. I thought that the plot made sense. I followed it. I wanted to see what happened. There were some twists at the end that I was like, oh, okay, that happened. All right, interesting. I thought that, like Tony said, there were points where it was very funny, just the skit kind of aspect of it, where there'd be a scene like where a white dude who's, I guess you'd call him a wigger in our terminology. He was trying to teach this black guy from the 30s, how to act black, in the 21st century in America, and that was really funny. But like Tony also said, it kind of was hard to figure out what the point was. There were moments where I was kind of annoyed by the heavy-handedness of it, and then there were moments where I was like, well, let me give this a chance. Maybe it is making a broader point that's relevant to everybody, and that basically satirizes everybody. And it seemed for a while like that's where it was going. And then I thought the end was it was an interesting ending, but it was also just a little bit obnoxious, and I will save some comments till round 3 on just more of that type of stuff. In the meantime, I will be carefully formulating these things because I want to get my point across in a very, careful and thoughtful way, because we're usually talking about science fiction movies, and I thought this used science fiction movie tropes in ways that were funny. I thought the robot was a little over the top, but at the same time I couldn't help but laugh at it. The point, I think, was a little bit fuzzy, a little bit, I don't know, I think the point was clear, but the way it was made was kind of fuzzy, because there were moments where you thought, oh, these people from the 30s are going to come and and help people in the 21st century like get over themselves. And you think they're on the verge of that happening, and then like when the professor guy goes to the student activist meeting and asks why there aren't any, if they're all integrated now in the 21st century, why haven't they asked any white students to come to their meeting, and there were some moments where it sort of made the point that it goes both ways. Racism can go any direction, and I thought this movie was about to make that point, and instead it just drove it home by, making it without trying to make it. And like I said, I thought the plot was interesting, and I kept with it till the end, and I cared about the characters from the 30s. I thought they were a little confused, and I thought that they were going to have more of an impact on the people of today than they did, and I would have liked to have seen that, play out a little bit more. The ending where the guy goes back to basically change history. I don't know. I thought it was just a little over the top and what's the word? Just a little unilateral on his part. Okay, that's about it for me. I have strong opinions, but I'm objective enough to see the stuff in it that worked. There were some things that worked, and I have a couple points that I'll save for next round and the round after that. So, back to Net in V5F.
Very good. Thank you for that. Next up is Dave, AC5DL. Welcome back, Dave. Your thoughts on what from KE5? ICX.
Okay, thank you, Tom. This is AC5DL. Well, I think most everybody else has covered a lot of the thoughts that I had about this. It was definitely an interesting movie for a sci-fi movie for this group. And the plot was interesting because it did cover science fiction type things. I mean, people built a rocket ship, they traveled into space, they went into a black hole, they got transported into the future, kind of like Star Trek episodes I've seen, and then they changed history. So it was interesting in that respect, in that it did have science fiction themes in it, but then it also had interlaced in it this I don't know how you would say it. It was highlighting, I don't know, the absurdities of racial prejudice, and it was challenging us to confront uncomfortable things about those things and our thoughts about how it affects society. It was they meant to create that in a humorous way, and there was a lot of satire in that respect, but I could see how it could be uncomfortable with some audiences just in the way that they bring these things up, and some of those things were a little uncomfortable to me, but the plot was it was humorous, and I did enjoy it, and there were some things about characterization that I'll probably bring up a little bit later, as well as special effects, but I guess I don't have a whole lot more to add, so I'll give it back to Ned. Back to you, Tom.
Yeah, I know a little. I'm thinking through this film. Let me go ahead and ask if anyone else would like to join us. We're talking about tonight's Afterglow movie, which is called Destination Planet Negro from 2013. If you'd like to join us, please come with your call sign, name, where you're transmitting from. Okay. Well, my comments, I did not get to see the payoff for this, so unfortunately I'm a little at a disadvantage here. I was actually working with a real estate agent on a purchase that I was not expecting, but I now have. So it's coming up for another story, but it did take up a vast majority of this afternoon. Unfortunately, I was going to pick up on it. I can't stay up much past 9 o'clock when we watch this film at 8 o'clock. For those of you who don't know, some of us sit and discuss the film while we run it all simultaneously in our own homes and discuss it over a chat feature there and make our comments as we watch the film together. So 9 o'clock rolled around, 9:15, 9:20, and it's time for Tom to go to bed. So I didn't get to see the rest of it. I got about an hour and 10 minutes in, something like that. So I did not get to see the payoff. But what this film reminds me of is a couple of things that are kind of interesting about it. First off, there is a mentioning, it does look like a skit and that. I've been watching the series, and if you haven't seen it, it is very interesting, and it has a little bit of a weird edginess to it. Not the same thing. It's not racial edginess. It's sort of a social edginess and kind of almost bordering on absurd horror of sorts. It's called Fallout, which is based on a video game of all things, but it has a wonderful characterization, and it you have to suspend belief in it, which is my point. It's colorful, it's gee whiz 1950s like this film is. This one having to do with an apocalyptic future, but it's an apocalyptic future after a bomb is dropped in the 1950s. So it has, in the future, a 1950s sensibility to it. Old cars that are sitting on the road, desolated. Las Vegas has this 1950s look to it. And that's where it ended when all the bombs were dropped. And then there's robots. Yes, there's robots that run on vacuum tubes and CRTs and miniaturization that's not quite miniaturized. It's bulky and difficult to move around, but it's miniaturized because it's got a handle on it. It's portable, as the military would say. So you have to suspend your beliefs. The loss of limbs and reattaching limbs with just ordinary people in the process of doing that, no problem, you can do that. And a whole bunch of other absurdities that just keep adding up. Well, you just kind of suspend belief in the whole thing and enjoy it for what it is. And knowing that the rules in this universe don't follow the rules in our universe makes it even more irresistible because it makes it unpredictable. How far can you go with stretching what is potentially an alternate reality with things that physically can't really happen when you think about it? It could be plausible, but you suspend belief, and that's the intersection with this film from the standpoint of the science fiction part. Yeah, the one guy builds the rocket himself, and he puts it inside of this bunker. Sure, he can do that. He did it in the afternoon, and then all of the tropes that go on with the black faculty at the university doing their thing, and they're all there. Every daughter is there, the scientist, the pilot, as mentioned earlier, and then the people, the financiers, the doubters, the politician. They're all there playing their stereotypical roles, only as black actors take on those roles. I thought that was really interesting, and I liked how they approached it. and they had their sarcastic comments along the way that didn't stray too far from the truth. So that's what made it uncomfortable, because we, as a nation, we've had our troubles, and we continue to have our troubles. Every day we hear about it, and people are affected by it negatively. And I think it's good that we are reminded of that fact. And even though this film was in 2013, we had a black president. We do not have a black president today, and there's been some regret.
Good evening. The time is 11 p.m. 5551.
And so when you see that, you kind of wonder, as a U.S. citizen, am I to blame? And to a certain extent, I am. And that's what makes it difficult sometimes to watch, because I'm not of that minority, and it's difficult to see that happen, because we're a melting pot, and to me that we should all get along. There shouldn't be this issue, but it does exist, and it's got some nastiness to it that's happened in the past. And I think that it's interesting in how they were able to make light of it and make it funny. And believe me, that happened with Mel Brooks stuff too. You think about it. You couldn't. People say the same thing about Blazing Saddles. Could you make that film today? Well, this film was made in 2013, so yes, you can. Do you suffer, or are you going to get some blowback? Of course you are. But satire is like that anyway, and comedy with satire is always like that. It is designed to make you uncomfortable to a certain degree and to make you think. And it gives you an opportunity to kind of assess. Can things be preachy? Absolutely they can be preachy. Is that a bad thing? Not necessarily. If it helps to make you think, and you can work through it without getting angry, I think that that's a good thing. Are there good lessons to be learned? Yes. Can things be unfair? Sometimes. But it's another person's point of view. How mad can you get at somebody with an opinion, especially in satire? And this is opinion. And I don't think we should feel that way when watching this story. They do it through humor. They do it with some really funny lines. That's a Mel Brooks trait, right? I mean, who else could get away with Springtime for Hitler, I mean, it's a horrible thing, but he was able to make it work. Maybe. So, I think the film had a noble purpose as well as entertainment. The one thing I'm not sure about is I don't know what the payoff was, and I feel bad that I didn't get a chance to see the film. I just didn't have the time to go and see it this afternoon. But I'll watch it tomorrow and see the conclusion tonight. Maybe I can equate some sort of an answer to that later. Maybe next week and do a follow-up. I'm not sure. But anyway, overall, I enjoyed the film. I thought it was well planned out. I think it was a little long. I think it was like an overly long skit to a certain extent. I would agree with that. But most of these films that we see where we give it kind of a lukewarm review or not quite stellar, pacing is probably one of the biggest factors in it. There's just not enough material to support an hour and a half to 2 hour movie. Maybe an hour episode of as a show might be more in keeping with certain ideas in science fiction. It just doesn't quite have the time and the depth to be able to do that. Don't know. Okay, those are my comments there. Let's see. We got Dave's done. We'll go up to the top, and we'll go back to Bill. N5BB will start talking about characterization. Believe it or not, there's a lot of characters in this film outside of the principal characters. So, Bill, what do you want to talk about there from KE5, ICX?
Well, this is N5BB. Well, I've tried now to skip back and rewatched part of it, but I'm still only seeing, a part of the whole thing. I haven't seen the whole movie end to end. Now I realize that they disappeared into some kind of twirling thing in space. They didn't really land on Mars or wherever. And I'm thinking that the movie, one big trope of it is from The Wizard of Oz. Because what happens, Dorothy, the house twisted around and everything got thrown around, just like the spacecraft did. And when she got out, everything's in color, just like it was in this movie. So something has got a Wizard in Oz kind of feeling about it. Because why was the original part black and white? That made no sense. Anyway, I just saw the part where the man from earlier in the movie has been transported to this alternate universe. I guess it's like the future. It's like 80 years in the future, but maybe it's alternate universe. I can't tell from what I've seen. Anyway, he gets transported, and he's spewing out things that the characters in the 30s don't understand, why he's spewing these things out of his mouth. So I don't know. I'm still confused about the whole premise of the movie. I guess it's mostly just a big spoof, because the spacecraft wasn't a real spacecraft. The suits weren't really supposed to be real suits. They didn't appear on Mars. They were in some place that wasn't really the future. Characters they had in their previous lives appeared in this one. Got to remember, that's what happened in The Wizard of Oz. Remember, some of the characters that Dorothy had known back in her life in Kansas, they appeared in Oz. Same exact thing here. So, I don't know. Characterizations, that's what I'm talking about, this in characterizations. It's kind of Wizard of Oz kind of feeling about it. I don't know. I'm still uncomfortable about the whole thing, and I don't understand it yet. I think that's all I got. In fact, BB.
Okay, thank you, Bill. So you're still perplexed. That's okay. What can we say? Next up is Tony, NT5TM. Tony, your thoughts on characterization from KE5, ICX.
Well, good evening, Tom. First, a quick note. If you call on me at some point in the future and I don't answer, please try calling on me again at the end of the round. I need to give midnight antibiotics to a bird. Well, we're not waiting till midnight, but I know you've given drugs to pets. That can be kind of challenging that when they need their medicine. So, yeah, I guess the movie did accomplish more of its purpose of getting me to think about various issues, even if I still think Mel Brooks was funnier. I sure did love laughing at some of the tropes. I know that's from Round One, but like you always have to have the meteor shower when you're traveling through space. And the characters were part of that too. As Bill mentioned, the continuity of the old sheriff to the new sheriff. Logo's the same, attitude's the same, actors the same, just driving a newer vehicle. I certainly, the continuity of the characters was fun. I quite liked I forget her specialty, but the young woman I think was one of the most flexible of the characters. I don't know Yeah, I guess I really hadn't thought about which characters would I say are dynamic characters. That's what I'm going to be pondering during the rest of the net. But I enjoyed them. Now I just need to think more deeply about what I think. Did we see character development, or were they just illustrating the points the filmmaker wanted to get across? I'm not sure. So hey, at least there's more to think about even if I don't know what my answer is. NT5TM.
All right, I'm sensing a pattern here. Thank you, Tony. Next up is Virginia. I'm skipping over Brian, but I'll come back to you, Brian. Virginia, ND5F. Virginia, what did you think about characterization on our film?
Okay, well, there were a lot of characters in this. You could tell them apart, which is good. They were tropey because they were supposed to be. It was a comedy. It was a very broad comedy or comedic sort of thing. In reference to, or in defense even of the plot, I don't think it was meant to be. It was more meant to be like a sketch type plot that was told in vignettes. It was just reinforcing its point over and over again without there being like, the biggest plot was, okay, we figured out that we're still on Earth, but we're in the future, and then we happened to, learn about, the string theory came into it, and then figuring out conveniently in time, figuring out you've got to go back through this Einstein-Rosen bridge before it closes so you can go back in time to the 30s, and there was a little bit of a science fiction plot to it, but I think it was purposely a pretty simple plot because that was the framing device for the point that they kept driving home with different characters in different situations. And I don't know that there were really any dynamic characters in this. I think they were all kind of stereotypes to play the, spin the kind of point that the story was making off of. I think there were some opportunities for character arcs that would have, I think, made this could have been, I know it was meant to be a comedy for obvious reasons, just to get the uncomfortable things out there in ways that are more, more in your face, and it's hard to do that with something dramatic, but this could have been kind of an interesting thing if they had done it more dramatically. But characters, I thought they were fairly interesting. The black historical characters, like we said, it is a farce, it is a comedy, it's played very broad, but at the same time I thought that the way some of those people, like, off the cuff spoke and acted, and we're all want to do that sometimes, but I think that it kind of reduced the, it just sort of like disrespected somehow the dignity of some of these people, like George Washington Carver, who was a very brilliant man, who was very educated, very dignified, very is still respected by people of all races all over the world for all that he did bring to science, and just the whole black culture of that era. It was a distinct and very dignified culture, and it was a shame that people were dealing with what they were dealing with, and they dealt with it in a way that was expedient to them changing things the best they could. It took time, and they had a very, I'm trying to find the right words because I want to say this as well as I can. It was a very family-oriented, very tight, close-knit, very, very unique culture that has basically been lost. And they were sort of acting like, oh, these rubes from the 30s, they need to get with the times and find out what black culture is really about. And I think it would have been a more interesting story if it had kind of gone the other way around. But I liked, overall the characters and actors were generally pretty good. They definitely got the point across. There was a variety, so you could see all the different points of view, which I appreciated. And the comedy, they were pretty good at their work. They were doing pretty good comedy. There were many moments when I laughed. There were moments when I was uncomfortable. There were moments when, I was frustrated by the preachiness. I feel insulted by preachiness. I don't like it very much. I think you can do the same job and do it in a way that engages a person and doesn't turn them off by making them feel like they're less than because you need to make your point. So not a big fan of preachiness. I thought it had pretty good actors in it and interesting characters that all stood out enough from each other and a lot more potential than it kind of completed here. So, but yeah, acting, characters, good. I liked the characters from the 30s. I liked the modern characters. I liked those people. I liked the the general people that the characters in the story. Thought they could have done a little bit more with it. Back to net in V5F.
All right, thank you, Virginia. I'll move on down to Dave, AC5DC. Dave, your thoughts on characterization from KE5I6.
Thank you, Tom. AC5DL here. Characterization. There was a lot of funny acting in this movie, and some interesting things too. They brought in George Washington Carver almost like he was a ghost, and brought him in, and they kind of made a parody of a lot of the famous work that he had done in the past with sweet potatoes and peanuts. And they kind of made a parody of that the fuel for the rocket was based on sweet potatoes, peanuts, and radioactive material. So anyhow, that was kind of interesting. There was the pilot, Race Johnson, who was characterized, he was dressed as a Tuskegee Airman. And at the beginning of the movie, and there was that kind of characterization with him. And then probably the most ridiculous character and funny in a way was this robot that they had made, and his name was Strong. And I couldn't figure out where they came up with that name until I looked up one place, and they said the name was probably based on a senator from the past, Strom Thurmond, and he was a segregationalist, and I looked him up on Wikipedia, and they had a sample of his voice, and I played that back, and it sounded very similar to the voice that this robot had, and the robot was just very off the wall. some of the things that I thought about characterization. I don't know if this falls under characterization, but just the fact that the movie moved from black and white and then into color when they landed on what they thought was Mars. And then I thought it was funny looking at their spacesuits because they were three different colors. They looked like Power Rangers. And I made that comment, when we were watching it on Friday because I thought it was kind of humorous. But, geez, that's probably about all I have on characterization. So I'll give it back to you, Tom, AC5DL.
Thank you, Dave. Thanks for your comment. Anyone else want to join us? Please come to your call. All right, let me jump up to Brian, K9AHO. Brian, you got any comments? Is this a film you might want to see? Does it remind you of anything? Didn't want to leave you out of the conversation, but I thought I'd give you a chance to chime in on anything you'd like to say from net tonight from KE5 ICM.
K9AHO. Hey, this is Brian, K9AHO. There was a little bit of unusual noise after you keyed down. I'm not sure what it was. Prior to that, there was sort of a high-pitched whine that descended, almost like charge was dissipating. But anyway, as I was listening, the explanations that you all were giving regarding the movie, it was bringing back reminders of Starship Troopers, The Wiz, Spaceballs, and even there toward the end, Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. They were bringing back characters from the past. So it sounded like kind of an amazing movie. I wished I had seen it now. K9AHO, back to net.
Good point to some of those other films. I'd forgotten about those, but they fall in that same vein, and there's that. They bring that in, and there are some racial elements to those films as well, if you think about it. So, I don't know. My opinion, probably with this one, maybe, I don't know, because again, I don't have the payoff. Perhaps the characterization wasn't deep enough, perhaps, to really pull it off, or maybe the writing wasn't quite there. I don't know. Without seeing the final minutes to the film, the final, I think it was about 40 minutes, 35 minutes or so that I still had left with the film when I had to leave. So I didn't get the payoff. But I suspect that might be what the problem is. One of the things about comedy that's important is not only the writing, it's timing and reaction. And this might fall in with our characterization is that many comedians and comedy actors, usually they are comedians, not always, but most of the time they are, have a sense of timing and appeal. They also frequently, if they go in and take a serious role, a lot of times will win an Academy Award or recognition for that role, because if you can do comedy right, you can probably nail a dramatic role as well, and do so in a very effective way. because acting is nuanced, whereas comedic acting is sometimes seems overly done, but not always. But a good actor is able to take and make that work. Interestingly, somebody like Robin Williams, who could do comedy sometimes way over the top to the point it was almost obnoxious, but then you give him a dramatic role, and he could be superb in that role. You dial it down in such a way, and he's very human and very believable in that, and still be in a comedy. And there are other actors like that as well. So maybe that was it. There was only one professional actor in this that I recognized, which was Wes Studi, who I guess is a friend of the director in this. But Wes Studi he plays Native American roles. I think he's mixed race, but he plays Native American roles. He's been in, dozens and dozens of movies and television shows. If you saw him, he just had almost a walk-on role in that. I looked at him and I said, I recognize that guy. He's been in everything. He's known for Last of the Mohicans, and he's known for what is the other film? I'm starting to get tired. It's been a long day today. Doggone it. I'll have to look it up because I can't recall the name of the movie. He was in Into the West as well, and a few others. But none of the other actors have that kind of those credentials. So maybe that was it. At least nobody that I recognize. At any rate, even still, through thick and thin, it seemed enjoyable. But I do have to see the rest of it to see how it went. So it didn't get its meaning across. So I guess that's all I got on that one. Okay, we'll go ahead and reset and go back up to the top. And the final one is special effects, which I think some folks were holding back on that. Now you can go ahead and say whatever you want. So this section is anything you want to talk about. Usually includes special effects music, technical details such as sound, lighting, and all of that. So whatever you'd like, or if it's some topic you'd like to revisit or a new topic, by all means, this is the time. So we'll start at the top with Bill, N5BB. Bill, what do you got?
N5BB. Well, I finally watched enough of the film. I now know that a black hole was involved in this. So now I can kind of see what kind of weirdness it is. It does look more and more like they were copying Wizard of Oz, trying to go back where they came from. Let's see, special effects. Again, the only reason I can imagine they went from black and white to color was they were trying to allude to Wizard of Oz. Nothing else inside this movie indicates why that is. So it must be this trying to make us think it's like the Wizard of Oz. The spacecraft, of course, interior looked stupid. By the way, the radio receivers, some of them might have been from the 30s, but most were from the 40s. Some of the other electronics was from the 50s or early 60s. So it wasn't exactly, they didn't have much electronics back in the 30s. So it was kind of pushing it there. It didn't really look like the 30s. They were trying to get kind of a steampunk look. And the spacecraft, of course, is pretty crude. It looks like somebody put together in a weekend. I mean, just kind of roughly drilled holes with switches. That didn't make any difference to them, those production values, because that wasn't the kind of movie it was. We weren't supposed to care much about that. What else? Of course, along the same lines, trying to navigate around the asteroids or whatever they were calling them, and then into that swirling black hole. Pretty cheesy special effects, just not much. But it wasn't supposed to look real. Like I say, think about the Wizard of Oz and the tornado, which actually was probably done better than this, if you think about it. Wizard of Oz probably had better special effects than this did. What else? When then at the end, there's some weird thing I saw, which I still haven't figured out, where all these white characters were just disappearing. And I haven't seen everything, so I'm totally confused by that part of the movie. I don't know what really happened there when these white characters were just vaporizing or something, turning yellow and disappearing. Maybe somebody can explain that to me. I think that's it. I don't know. Tom, if I'd gone into this understanding it was not a science fiction movie, it was some farce, kind of skit thing about race and other things, it would have been a little more understandable. That's all I got in 5BB.
All right, thank you, Bill, and thanks for your comments this evening. It sounds like you were confused through and through, and don't feel alone with that. I think that most of us felt the same way. Next up is Tony, NT5TM. Tony, run away from the sick bird, come over, put the medication down, and tell us your final thoughts from KE5 ICX.
Oh, he does not want to be up this late. He just bit me on the nose. I'm really lucky that I didn't have my hand near the push-to-talk button, or you would have heard the noise I made. Aaron was overhearing me talking about this and hearing a little bit of the other comments, and it made us both think of a Spike Lee movie from 2000 called Bamboozled, which in turn was inspired by an old Andy Griffith movie, A Face in the Crowd. Or was it A Man in the Crowd? A Face in the Crowd. A rare serious role for him. So there's definitely some other things worth seeing. That usually I only suggest alternative movies when the movie was really horrendous. But in this case, it really did make me think of the Spike Lee Bamboozled, and it made Aaron think of that too here in our descriptions. I didn't want to be too hard on the special effects. They were purely pretextual and fun, just part of the satire. I thought the spacesuits looked like Teletubbies. David thought they looked like Power Rangers. But either way, it's pretty clear they're not really spacesuits. So I don't take off any points for that any more than I would in a Saturday Night Live sketch. So yeah, enjoyed it. Got us talking. Got us thinking. The music was fun and melodramatic. I think that contributed to the atmosphere at least as much as the stylistic effects did. So I want to give it a point for that. And I think that's all I've got. Tom, thank you for staying up with us. NT5TM.
All right, thank you, Tony. Thanks for your comments this evening. They were most helpful. Next up is Brian, K988HO. Brian, you got anything you'd like to say? Final words for tonight's net from KE5 ICX.
Final words? Maybe a couple of them. Thank you very much. I enjoyed this, even though I didn't see the movie. I felt like I did, and I really appreciate seeing it through your words tonight, everyone. K9AHO, back to that.
All right, thank you, Brian. Thanks for making your comments. It's always helpful, and you never know. You know, sometimes when somebody hasn't seen the movie, they hear the comments, and then they make a suggestion for a movie or ask a question about the current one we're talking about, and everybody goes, that's interesting. So, yeah, I always encourage and like to encourage conversation, even from folks that haven't seen the film, because you're walking in cold. You may have some really good comments, and I thought you did tonight. Thanks. We'll see you next week. Next up is, what do I have? I can't even read my own writing. It's Virginia, ND5F. Boy, somehow or another, it looks like Egyptian hieroglyphics tonight. I think I'm just tired. ND5F from KE5ICX. Your final comments, technical, otherwise, whatever you like.
Okay, well, I am fine with the effects. It was supposed to look like cheesy science fiction. It was supposed to feel like cheesy science fiction to a degree. I liked the zero G sound effect when they first experienced zero G. I thought that was funny. I liked the sort of stock-sounding, old-school science fiction movie music. It almost sounded like they had borrowed it from another movie or from a library, which I thought was really clever. And I thought the black and white cinematography in the opening section was pretty good. I don't think it was meant to necessarily evoke Wizard of Oz. You know, it might have been a play on that it was about black people, black and white, and then they go to the colored world, and colored is also a reference, a euphemism, not used anymore, but anyway, I don't know if there was any specific reason except to distinguish the past from our past from, our present by making our present colored and then black and white film equals the past. I don't know that it was supposed to be really making us think about Wizard of Oz. Bill, the best solution for you to understand the movie is to just watch it from beginning to end. I know you're trying to skip around so you could catch up and talk about it more, but just sit down and watch it from beginning to end. It won't be that confusing. It's just, it's kind of a vignette-driven story, so you'll see these little segments, these sequences that don't all make one big overarching plot, except for that they landed in the future, and then by the end they've got to figure out how to get back to the past. And then one character from the present / future decides he's going to go back in time there's kind of a switcheroo done where one person stays and then this guy from the present goes back and decides he's going to change history by making sure certain people don't reproduce. And I'm guessing I don't know, by all the other people that were disappearing, it looks like he did more than that, and I question that as a real good way to illustrate how to handle the situation at hand back then or even now. I just didn't really think it played very well. It played as just too dark for me, and not very representative of being enlightened on how to deal with what's been and will be an ongoing problem, which is just general fear and people not thinking of other human beings as human beings. There was something read earlier, Tom read something about a quote by someone about how a movie like this, quote unquote, should not be necessary, and my response to that is a movie like this isn't necessary. It could have been done in a way that might have made it good or even necessary. I just don't think it was You know, when you're like a white person watching a movie like this, and there's some really funny stuff and some funny cultural stuff, and you know, I've tended to be a person who is interested in sort of the entertainment or stories or tastes or idiosyncrasies of different cultures, and I find it quite bothersome and kind of hurts my feelings when the implication is that the solution is to, you know, get rid of white people. Well, I can't help that I'm a white person, so I don't have anything to do with the problems that are going on now. I have not contributed to any of them, and I don't feel any kind of or retroactive guilt. But I did see some things in this movie that had promise. I saw some good acting. I saw some clever ideas about how to make a satire, and I think it could have been done in a way that was less preachy and less heavy-handed, and at the same time, by the end, they were scraping together every minority, every alternate or different lifestyle minority, and they were just making it all about, you know, how anybody who's not one of those kind of people, whatever they happen to be, is somehow to blame, and just, you know, I just didn't really care for, it lost its way. It had some promise about how it could have been a satire that kind of made fun of everybody and made everybody think, and it mostly just made me feel uncomfortable, not in a productive way, at a lot of turns. But there were other things in it I thought were really funny, and I thought the music was funny, and I thought the science fiction stuff was funny, and it was an interesting idea for a framing device. Could have been used to more of an advantage. Back to NV5F.
All right, thank you, Virginia. And, you know, any satire is in danger of that because it makes fun of something, a group of people, a situation, or both. And it can land differently for different people. It can be intended for different audiences. Certainly political satire is like that. Differently for depending on political persuasion, so that's not a surprise. That satire globally is somewhat difficult. I mean, maybe rich man, poor man works because very few rich people, you know, there are very few of them in the world in comparison to everybody else. So you can satirize rich people fairly easily and have a broad appeal. You know, I don't think a film that satirizes poor people with rich people works all that well. I don't know. It depends on how the material is handled, I guess. Fighting with IDs and things. I get feedback over here when I hear that, and I think that's the noise that you hear on the radio when I'm speaking. I'm not sure since I can't hear it. But at any rate, okay, next up, the last but not least, is Dave, AC5DC. Dave, your final comments on anything you would like from KE5 ICS.
Okay, thank you, Tom. Just to correct your log there, call sign is AC5DL, L on the end. Anyhow, I just wanted to add a few things about special effects. You know, they were reasonably good. Of course, not, how can I say, Star Wars type quality, but still pretty good and still pretty funny at times, like when they went weightless. I thought that was kind of humorous, and Virginia mentioned about the funny music and all that kind of stuff. But one thing that I did want to note was they had some really good boat anchors on this rocket ship. I mean, they just literally had walls of them. You know, there were so many of them, they were stacked almost up to the ceiling. And I even saw an old BC-348 in there. I knew that Bill Byram would like this because they had an oscilloscope in there, although it wasn't a Tektronix. They did have an oscilloscope on the spaceship, so it was legit in that respect. What else? One thing that I thought was funny in the background, along with all of the boat anchors in the back wall, did anyone else see the fact that there was something there that had a long arm on it with a handle like it was a butter churn, but it was turned sideways and going into the wall of the spaceship. I have no idea what that was, but I thought it was kind of funny, and maybe it was meant to be some kind of a satirical type thing on a butter churn, or I don't know. I guess butter churn isn't the right word, but something with a big handle on it, a long handle with a grip on it for turning. You know, I just thought it was kind of humorous. Anyhow, that was all I have. So, AC5DL, back to net.
All right, thank you, Dave. Well, there was so much stuff in there. You were right. There was a lot of, what are they called? Weevils? Greevils, I think they're called. Well, at least on models, they're called that. But, yeah, I think you're right. Interesting stuff. Lots of little visuals in there that were quite fun. That made it look good. All right, here we go. Next week's movies are ready by special request. And you'll appreciate this. By the way, I'm sorry I missed your call. I should have known it was your initial L, but I wrote down P. Maybe I wrote down L and it looks like I don't know. I think it's this late. Next week's movie will be Hangar 18 from 1980. So it's got a lot of character actors and people that you recognize from 60s and 70s television, now all washed up in a movie from 1980, a low-budget film that's sort of like Close Encounters of the Third Kind, only not. I'm watching it without the sound on right now, and it's quite entertaining. And with that, I'm going to say goodnight to everyone. We'll see you all here next week, same bat time, same bat station. So 7-3, we'll see you next time. This is KE5, ICX now clear.